Hey guys, welcome to the Fantasy Buckets podcast. I'm Jacob, I'll be your host. Appreciate you guys tuning in, appreciate you clicking on the video. This podcast segment is going to be aimed at the deep sleepers, guys who are going late in your draft. And these aren't going to be your obvious picks. These aren't the top ranked guys. These aren't the James Hardens and the Kevin Durant's and the Blake Griffins and all those guys, or the Westbrooks. These are going to be guys who you can take in the later rounds, past the 7th, 8th, 9th round, and fill out your team because maybe you want to fill out your team because you didn't like your top picks, or these are just good safety blankets to have if your guys don't pan out. Say Blake Griffin gets hurt, or I took Anthony Davis in my draft and that kind of hurt me. Because he's, it didn't hurt me yet, but potentially it could hurt me because he's already got a sprained ankle. But hopefully it's not too serious. But these are guys that you can take that can potentially have a bust-out year and end up being your starters or replacing the starter. So we'll get right into it. First, we're going to start off with the point guards. We got Jeremy Lin. He's with Brooklyn now. He's not going to go nuts. He's not going to pull off another insanity, but he's the only viable option on Brooklyn. Like, Brooklyn doesn't have anybody well known. I think they've got about Bogdanovich, but other than that, like they don't really have anybody else. And he's going to have every opportunity to get buckets, to get assists. I think he's proven that he can play in the NBA. He's also proven that he's not a superstar, but he's a serviceable point guard, and he can get the job done. He can average, I see him averaging maybe about 16, 17 points, and if he's getting minutes, he's going to average a handful of assists, a couple steals here and there. And he'll even have those bust-out, throwback insanity games where he goes off for like 20, 30 points. He did it a couple times last year, so I think he's a sleeper. Next guy on the list is going to be Ish Smith, which his first name is Ish. It's the censored version of the word, Ish was with the Rockets a while back. I always liked his game. I always thought he was a good point guard. He just needed the right fit. He's with Detroit right now. The reason he's going to have the opportunity is because Reggie Jackson is hurt he's going to be out 8 weeks with a knee injury. So Ish Smith last year started for the Sixers for a stretch, and I picked him up off the waiver wire, and he had some great games for me. He was giving me 20-plus fantasy points per game, and he was doing great. He's got Andre Drummond there. Andre Drummond's a great pick-and-roll guy. Ish Smith is a pick-and-roll point guard, so Drummond can set the pick, and Ish Smith can either shoot that mid-range or shoot the floater, or if they don't close out on him, he can lob it or drop it off to Drummond, and that's a dunk all day. He's not going to give you a bunch of shots. He's not a three-point shooter, but he's definitely capable of getting in the lane and finishing, amongst the tall trees. And then also, he also's got Tobias Harris, who's there at forward, and is going to be available for that pop-out mid-range jumper off the pick and roll. So those are two good options that he has, and I see him, if you don't like your point guards, I see him as a good temporary start until, your point guards come around, or if you drafted Reggie Jackson and you want to keep him as a backup, all the more reason to take Ish Smith. And I took him in the last round. I took him in the 13th round, and I felt like I got a steal because I took him late. The next guy on the list is going to be Darren Collison. Now, Darren Collison, he's suspended for 8 games, right? But when he gets there, he's going to be starting for Sacramento. So, say Darren Collison is a legit point guard. Last year, he wasn't a great option because Rondo was there in Sacramento, and he was hogging up all the minutes. But if you played fantasy basketball last year, and any game that Rondo missed, he didn't miss many, but the few games that he did, Collison performed, and he gave you great production. I had Collison 2 years ago when he was a starting point guard, and he averaged, I think, like either 17 or right under 17 fantasy points per game, and he was a great late pickup. I see him doing that again this year. He's still got DeMarcus Cousins there, who's another great pick and roll big man. Ty Lawson is going to be his backup right now, but I wouldn't suggest taking Ty Lawson because, man, ever since he left Denver, he hadn't been the same. And, I mean, what you could actually do is you could take a Ish Smith and start him until Reggie Jackson comes back, and by the time Reggie is in the lineup, Darren Collison will probably be ready to go. So that's a good combo for you to take there. Ty Lawson's not a good option, man. That dude is missing flights. He's missing team flights to games, and I don't know what's going on with that guy. He was such a great player, had great potential, but he's fallen off the wagon the last couple of years. Next guy on the list for point guards is going to be Elfrid Payton. Elfrid Payton is going to be the starting point guard for Orlando. Oladipo is gone. He fills all the stat sheets. He'll get you assists. He'll get you steals. He might get you a block or two. And he's a good rebounding point guard. Points, scoring-wise, he's not going to give you great points. He's not going to go nuts and average like 20. But he could average 10 points, and then he fills in all the other stats. So he rounds off nice as a good fantasy player. He's not a great shooter, but he knows how to get into the basket. And there was a stretch last year where he was averaging like a triple-double for a good 3, 4, 5 game stretch, and it was amazing. Oladipo's gone. He's their young rookie. They see him as a future there, so I think he'll have all the opportunity. So next we're gonna move on to shooting guards, and here are some sleepers at shooting guards. First on my list is Justice Winslow. He's gonna be the starting shooting guard. He's kind of a combo player. He's kind of a tweener, so you could place him at small forward or shooting guard. Luol Deng is gone. Dwayne Wade is gone. He's in Chicago. And I see Justice Winslow as like a poor man's Kawhi Leonard. He can fill up all the stats. He's a poor shooter, but the potential is there. He's a great defender, so he'll get a lot of minutes. And if his offensive game comes around and he can learn how to, add some of that, add some repertoire to his offense, and then his ceiling gets even higher. And he's young, he's improving. I believe it's only his second year. Next guy on the list for shooting guards is going to be Will Barton. Will Barton had a great stretch last year. He put up some good fantasy buckets. I think for my friend Rick, he went off. He had a great start. He kind of fills it out towards the end of the year. But he's a good scoring punch off the bench for the Denver Nuggets, and besides Gallinari's back, Danilo Gallinari is back, and he's really the only other perimeter scorer, and Gallinari's kind of a tweener because he scores inside too sometimes. But other than that, like there's really not a lot of scoring, power on the Denver Nuggets. So I think Will Barton's going to have the opportunity. Their young guy Gary Harris is out with the groin injury, so he won't be there to start the season. And Will Barton can carve himself out a role for the rest of the season. I mean, he did it last year, so I don't see why he couldn't do it this year. I think he's a great sleeper pick, especially as shooting guard. It's a very thin, scarce position as far as talent. Next on my list is Evan Fournier. He'll be in the backcourt with Elfrid Payton. Again, Oladipo is gone. Oladipo was the starting shooting guard. Whenever Oladipo sat last year, Fournier scored great. He got buckets. And that's pretty much all he does. He'll get you points. He'll get you 20, 25 points. He can even get you some 30-plus point games. I think he has that potential. But, keep your expectations, intact, because he doesn't provide much else. He's just a scorer. He's kind of like a Kevin Martin, kind of like Kevin Martin was back in the day. Next on the list is Rodney Hood. Rodney Hood also has some big flashes of good games last year. Gordon Hayward is out for 8 weeks at least. Could be out longer. They did bring Joe Johnson in, but I think Joe Johnson is there to kind of fill Hayward's, position at small forward. But Joe Johnson is aging. He's getting older, and I don't see him really producing like I don't see him producing and becoming a threat to Rodney Hood's potential. I think Rodney Hood is the younger cat. He's gonna be getting up and down. He'll be able to last more minutes, and if anything, Joe Johnson just might be there for the last game-winning clutch shots, because that's what Joe Johnson does. He's like another Paul Pierce or something like that. He comes in and he hits the game winners, but other than that, I don't see him scoring a lot of points. I think Rodney Hood will have plenty of minutes and plenty of opportunity to give you some fantasy production. Moving on, we'll go to the small forward position. First on the small forward position is Chandler Parsons, and he's with Memphis now. I know what you're thinking. He's always hurt. He's been injury prone ever since he left Houston, and I'm kind of glad we traded him when we did. But he's with Memphis, and Memphis does not have a lot of scorers on the team. Mike Conley's a great, very underrated point guard, but he's not a scoring point guard. And Chandler Parsons kind of has a great all-around skill set. He can give you some passes, he can give you some steals, some rebounds, and he can shoot from the outside. And Memphis really needs that. They need his skill set, and I think the opportunity for him will be there. Next on the list is Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is a rookie coming in from Duke. He's got crazy potential. This dude is 6'9". He's like another Kevin Durant. He's got footwork. He's got the handles. He can kill you from inside, outside, and he's 6'9". I know he only weighs 190 pounds, but they got him playing small forward. It's not like they have him playing down on the block, posting up, trying to back up some big guys. They got him out in the wing, and man, his strides are crazy. His strides are like KD's strides, and he can also shoot the ball. I see his ceiling just being through the roof, and I think even if Ben Simmons would have been healthy, I still would have picked Ingram as my pick for Rookie of the Year. Now I just think it makes him more definite. I mean, I could be wrong, but I see a lot of potential there. Next on the list is going to be Jabari Parker. Jabari Parker is finally healthy. He's finally healthy. He came back in the second half of the season last year, and he did great. He has a great skill set. Him and Giannis Antetokounmpo could be a scary duo, and the key factor in me adding him to this list is that Chris Middleton is out for the year. Chris Middleton is out for the year, and Jabari Parker is presented with the opportunity to step up, because Chris Middleton was a great fantasy player last year, but he's gone. So I can see him and Giannis being a good duo, and those guys might be the future. Next on the list for small forwards is going to be Danilo Gallinari, and he's healthy once again, and like Parsons, he's a risky pick. The dude's always hurt, but man, when this dude is healthy, he's talented. He gets buckets. He'll drop a 40 burger on somebody. He can shoot from outside. He can mix you up a little bit. He's got some handle to him. A lot of people, I think, underrate his handles as a small forward and big guy. And man, there's not a lot of options on that team. Like, there's not a lot of other options on the team. Who do the Nuggets have? Like, who's on that squad? Not anybody really noticeable, and not anybody that you would kind of see as taking. The only other guy that they got is Kenneth Faried, but he's more of a rebound guy, he's not like a big points guy, and they're gonna need to score from somewhere. That's kind of why I mentioned Will Barton earlier. But Danilo Gallinari is gonna be the main guy on that team to be the primary scorer, and with Barton coming off the bench or maybe starting at the beginning of the season to help Gallinari with that scoring punch. But I see Gallinari as a great pick, and if he drops low enough to you, man, take him, because he's got all the potential. Moving on, we're gonna get into power forwards. First guy on my list for power forwards is gonna be Ryan Anderson. Ryan Anderson's with the Rockets now. Rockets gave him a pretty good contract, and the dude can flat out shoot. He can shoot. He's got a nice little post game. He's got kind of a finesse post game to him, but he just has a knack for scoring, and a big part of his scoring repertoire is his shooting ability. He'll get on the block. He's not going to give you some power moves in the block. He kind of just likes to kind of give you a shimmy and then shoot that fadeaway, and it works for him because he's a great shooter. Harden has looked like a passer this preseason. He looks like the distributor, the facilitator. He kind of always has been, but it looks like he's increased that role and that attribute to his game for the team so far. D'Antoni likes to run a quick offense. He likes to get up and down, so that means more offensive possessions, and that means more opportunity for Ryan Anderson to score. He's not going to get you a lot of rebounds. He's not the greatest defender, but he'll definitely get you some buckets and get you some points. So I think that's a good late round pick. Next guy on the list is going to be Gorgui Dieng. Garnett was the starter last year, but he's retired. Even though he didn't really play starter minutes, just because he was older in his last year of his career. But Gorgui Dieng has the full green light now. That power forward spot is his spot. He's kind of a power forward center. He might have both positions as his next to his name and what he's labeled at and where you can use him, but he'll give you the production that you'll need, and him and Karl-Anthony Towns are a good duo. They look like they can work well together. Karl-Anthony Towns can step outside and shoot the three and shoot the long mid range, and Gorgui Dieng isn't really looking to score. If he's improved his offensive game this offseason, then that's just a plus. But I can see how that front court can coexist, and I think their skill sets complement each other. Dieng is a good rebounder. He gets you rebounds and blocks all day. What he lacks in offense, he'll fill up on everything else. He's got active hands. He's always got his hands in the lane, and he's I think he's a good late round pick. Next on the list is going to be Greg Monroe. Greg Monroe always he's always a beast. He always seems to fly under the radar. I don't know why that is exactly, but Greg Monroe is always a good pickup. He always gives you great points, and he can score. He can post up. He can rebound, and he always does a great job. There's been rumors of him being traded and going somewhere else, but I think he's good enough to where even if he was traded, he would still hold value because he's got that kind of talent. He's just one of those guys that kind of flies under the radar and people just kind of forget about. I'm not sure why that is, but it happens. Next on the list is going to be Taj Gibson. Taj Gibson he's going to be competing with Mirotic and Bobby Portis for the power forward position, but I honestly think he'll beat those guys out. He's a great competitor. He's the best defender out of that bunch, hands down. He's the best rebounder out of that bunch. Mirotic gives you a little more scoring, but he was very inconsistent last year. And I think Taj Gibson is a shoo-in for that position. Noah's officially gone. Gasol is gone. So somebody's going to have to pick up those boards. I know that Robin Lopez is there, but as big as Robin Lopez is, he's not a great rebounding center. He doesn't, I don't know why it is, but he always just kind of lacks the rebounding stats that you would think that he has. And Gibson is a hustler, and he'll get those boards. On top of that, Gibson has a nice mid-range jumper, and Rondo is there, so I could see Rondo hitting him on the baseline for those mid-range jumpers that Gibson can always shoot and splash in. So that's another good late pick for a power forward. Going from there, we'll move on to the center position. My first sleeper at the center position is going to be Clint Capela. Clint Capela. Clint Capela, I saw him play a lot last year because I'm from Houston. I watched the Rockets games. Harden and Capela have a great chemistry. They have a great chemistry. Whenever Howard was out last year and had his injuries and little back issues and whatnot, Capela got the start and Capela produced. He put up good numbers. Now he's the official starter. That center position is his position. He'll be playing more minutes. It looked like he put on a little more muscle this offseason, which is great. Like Howard, he doesn't have great free throw percentages, right? Like a lot of big men in the league don't. But I don't think that's gonna knock his game. A lot of his shots and a lot of his field goals are going to be efficient because most of his field goals are going to be right around the paint, finishing off a pass, from James Harden, or it's going to be a lob, for a dunk. And he's kind of like a poor man's DeAndre Jordan. And he's got a good head on his shoulders, and just watching the guy, it just looks like he works hard and he wants to improve. And if he's add some offensive, moves to his game this offseason, then that just makes his ceiling even higher. But I think he's a great pickup. He's gonna get a lot of minutes and he's gonna have the opportunity. Next guy on the list is not a sleeper really. He's kind of a big name, but I'm including him in this segment because a lot of people have written him off, and I think that he still has a lot of miles left on his tank, and for some reason, he's not going to be one of those guys that drops down real low just based off his name, but I think he has more potential, and he's being undervalued than where he actually is, so that's why I'm including him on this list. And his name is Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard, yes. Kind of connected to my first pick, Clint Capela. But Dwight Howard, he is being viewed in a different light because of the season he had last year and the years before. But I think that this is going to be a fresh start for him. He has the potential to be as good as a Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond, and he's going to go a couple rounds below them. I think him and Harden just didn't have great chemistry. Their games didn't mesh. I honestly think they just didn't like each other, so there was no energy or effort to even make that work. And I think they were just kind of waiting for time to run out. But I know Howard gets criticized a lot, but I've seen him in the playoffs, and I know that he wants to win. He's looked real great in the preseason. He was even hitting some mid-range backboard shots a la Tim Duncan. So maybe he's added that to his game. And if he that's always been a knock on him, is that he doesn't really have a good finesse touch to his post-up game. But I see him improving, and on top of that, he's got Dennis Schroeder as his point guard, and Dennis Schroeder can lob that thing, he can pass it, and I see that being a good pick and roll guy for him. He's always been a great rebounder, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's going to be Orlando Magic Dwight Howard. I just think that he's going to be a good, formidable big man, especially where you'll be able to take him in your draft. I think you have a bounce back year. Next guy on the list is going to be Joakim Noah. The big man is back. He's playing in the front court with Kristaps Porzingis. I think those guys' games complement each other great. Porzingis is the shooter, finesse guy, and Joakim Noah likes to get down and dirty and do all the dirty work. On top of that, people forget how good of a passer Joakim Noah was with Chicago. And if you look around that starting five, you got Porzingis, who's not really, he may, potentially be a good passer in the future because his skill set is just crazy for his size. But as of right now, he's not known as that. He's known as a guy that gets buckets. Then you got Melo. Melo doesn't pass. And you got D Rose, who's a scoring point guard. He's not your traditional old style point guard that that focuses on assists. D Rose is at his best when he's attacking. So who's gonna pass the ball on that team, and I could see a lot of offense going through Noah and him kind of being the big man facilitator. And don't be surprised if he's one of the leading assisting big man this upcoming season. He's healthy. He always gives you boards. He always gives you a couple steals. He's a great defender, and I think he'll do great this year. Next on the list, next, he's also last on my list. Timofey Mozgov. He left Cleveland. Tristan Thompson kind of made him irrelevant there. But the Lakers saw a lot of potential in him, and they gave him a good chunk of money during the offseason, and they've been criticized for it. So I think the Lakers took a lot of flack, and they're going to have to give him the opportunity to prove the critics wrong. So that's the main thing with Mozgov is opportunity. He's going to play the most minutes of his NBA career. He's going to be the starting center there. He's a big man. Like I've mentioned before, centers are just good at fantasy basketball because they get boards. They can get you 8 to 10 boards, and then they can get you six or so points, 6 or 8 points. It doesn't take huge scoring outputs for big men to give you some good points because they'll get you 8 points on 4 for 4 shooting or 4 for 5 shooting, or they'll get you 10 points on 4 for 6 shooting. So you don't have that negative minus a point for that field goal attempt because most of the time they're making it, and their field goal percentage is a lot higher than perimeter players. So for Mozgov, that's kind of my theory in picking him is that he's going to have the opportunity. And he did have some good stretches when he got the opportunity last year and the year before. He put up good numbers, and he's a big body. He's best known for getting dunked on, but that's just the highlight reel. When you actually watch a game, you'll see that he is a good presence for defense in the paint, and he might average some more blocks, and I think all the stats that you would expect from a big man are going to improve for him because he's going to have the opportunity, like I said earlier. So that concludes my Sleepers edition. I appreciate you guys watching, and tune in. I'll be putting this on SoundCloud for strictly audio, and I think this is a good start as far as Sleepers segment. I'll try to, if I come up with any more, I may make a part 2 Deep Sleepers edition. But yeah, I look forward to the next videos, and I appreciate you guys watching. This has been the Fantasy Buckets podcast. Thanks.